everyone. This is Faith at Faith and Books. How are you doing? It has been a while. I think I haven't made a video in more than 4 weeks. I knew that was probably going to be the case. I'm not going to talk much about Alaska in this video because I just want to get back onto booktubes. I'm mostly going to talk about books, and I think I'll make a separate video about our trip to Alaska. But if you didn't know, we went to Alaska for 2 weeks. We went at the end of, well, I think we left July 19th. Was that right? And we came back August 4th. It was fantastic. It was just wonderful. We'd never gone on a cruise before. We didn't know if we'd like that. It was really enjoyable. We did 1 week on a cruise. This was through Holland America, and then another week of land tour, and it was magnificent. We saw all the things. We saw a grizzly bear at Denali National Park. We saw so many humpback whales and orcas and all kinds of wonderful wildlife, and the landscape in Alaska is just breathtaking. It's like something out of the Lord of the Rings. The glaciers and the fjords and the snow-capped mountains and just all the flora and fauna are just magnificent. So just the geography of the place, it was just stunning. So we really, really enjoyed it. So I'm going to do another video about that. And hopefully my husband's going to put together some footage that he took mostly, so that I can show you pictures. And I'll make it a separate video because if you're not interested, some people get really bored by listening to other people's travel stories, and I can get that. I understand that. So I'm just gonna make a separate video, and I'm gonna just stick to the topic of books in this video. So since the middle of July, I've only managed to complete 3 books. When I was, a couple days before we left, let me see if I can find it on my Kindle, I started reading this one. Oh, it's opening. I started reading James Michener's Alaska. And let me see if I can get to the cover. Nope, that didn't work. I should have set this up beforehand. Oh, wait, here we go. Anyway, I was reading I was reading Alaska by Michener. And let's see if I can, it's being slow. Come on. Oh, there we go. I was reading this. So this is a honkin' big book. I mean, I don't know how many pages. We went to a bookstore in Skagway, I think, and I saw, and I actually ran into a couple of people who were reading it on the trip. But it is a really thick book. And I mean, he really could have used an editor. It did not need to be that massive, in my opinion. I really appreciated all the information and history that the book gave. I think it really enhanced my experience of Alaska because I was learning about its history and I knew virtually nothing. And so that was a really enriching thing. And I really appreciated the depth of the history that's in his book, and the attention to detail was, I mean, really like fine points he was getting right. But I really don't like his writing style, and I don't like the style of this type of way of conveying history, because what he does is instead of it being historical fiction where you have this story happening within the bounds of a historical period, he uses fictionalized characters to tell the history of a place. So in my opinion, what happens then is that these fictional characters are very two-dimensional, and he just isn't a very good fiction writer. So the dialogue was really stiff and unnatural, and there's no character development. There's no depth of character. And even his descriptions, like he would be describing the countryside or the landscape, and I would look out at the landscape that he was describing, and his words were inadequate. Like he did not convey in his descriptions the power and the beauty and majesty of the place. He just is to me, a very prosaic writer. So I didn't like the fiction aspect at all, and I got really impatient with it. And I just wanted to be done with that. I just wanted to learn the facts. I was like, just the facts, okay? That part he was good at, the other part, not so much. So, and it was just a slog at times. At times I almost gave up on it, but I forced myself because I knew I was getting information and background and history of Alaska while I was experiencing Alaska. So I did finish it. So I finished it, I think, the day after we got home. But it was at parts, at times, I was really struggling to stay engaged with the book. So I don't think I'm a Michener fan. Now, I'm pretty sure I'd read Michener in my youth. I don't remember what, though. I do remember starting Poland, but then getting bogged down in it and giving up on that. But I'm pretty sure I read something else by him. And I've been wanting to read the book on the Chesapeake because I live near the Chesapeake. And so I don't know though if it's worth it because I just thought that his fiction writing was pretty bad. So that was a big achievement for me, just because it was a big, thick book, but also because it was a hard read for me because I wasn't enjoying it. So towards the end of the cruise, when I was really tired of reading Michener, I decided to take a break and read this book, which I brought with me, Agatha Christie's 450 from Paddington. So a couple of Christmases ago, I was given the whole set of Miss Marple, and I'm working my way through it. And so this was the next one that I needed to read. I forget what number it is. It's not an official series, but it's been published like it's a series, all the Miss Marples together. Anyway, this was a great read. It was such a relief. It was a nice break to read somebody who's truly a great writer. I enjoyed it very, very much. I read it in 2 days. And I was familiar with the story already because I had seen the movie Murder, She Said, which is a 1960s British movie starring, is her name Margaret Rutherford? I think that was the actress who plays Miss Marple. And she's very unlike the Miss Marple in the book, but she's a good Miss Marple. And it was, I love that movie. I've watched it like 3 times. I think back in March Mystery Madness, I think Gavin at Genre Books, which is a channel I really like, he was doing a whole Miss Marple thing, and he was watching all the Miss Marple movies that he could find. And he did a fantastic whole series on his BookTube channel on it. And he mentioned the Murder, She Said. And I remembered watching that with my mother, when I was little. And so I watched it then, and then I watched it again at some point, and then when I got home from Alaska, I watched it again. So I really, really love that movie. If you want to watch a good, it's like a comfort movie for me. It's quirky, and the pacing is good, the acting is great, and it's just this cozy mystery. So anyway, so Murder, She Said is an adaptation of, well, they change, they modify it a bit, but it's essentially the same plot as 450 from Paddington. So that was a nice relief from James Michener's Alaska. So those were the 2 books that I got read on the trip, or, I completed the Michener the day after we got back. So then I was trying to find another book to read. I was going to read James by Percival Everett, which one of my sisters recommended to me. And I had bought it on my Kindle, but I was waiting to read it in the summer because I thought a retelling of Huckleberry Finn from Jim's perspective just seemed like a summer book to me. So I was going to read that initially on our trip to Alaska, but then I found Alaska by Michener, and I thought, well, I should learn something about this place because I didn't know much about it. It was really my husband's dream, and I was just going along. So I wasn't really like mentally prepared but it was a fantastic trip. It was just wonderful. Anyway, so what was I saying? So, after I finished Michener, I started on James, and unfortunately, I did not get on with the author. I read about 38%. And then I decided to give up. So it just convinced me that I am completely at odds with what I look for in literature compared to what the gatekeepers or the powers that be that decide who wins prizes in the field of literature. We don't see eye to eye. I didn't think James was, I just didn't like it. I didn't trust the author. He does something in it that I thought was really forced and artificial. And I just didn't like it. So I was forcing myself to read it, and I got 38% in, and I thought, I just came off of forcing myself to read a book that I wasn't really enjoying. Why am I doing this again to myself just to be good? So just because it's a Pulitzer Prize winner and everybody else seems to rave about it and I'm not seeing it, I'm decidedly underwhelmed by it. So I gave up. So then I picked up the next Agatha Christie in the series, The Mirror Cracked from Side to Side. I just finished this a couple days ago. This was really enjoyable. So first of all, it's so funny. The title, The Mirror Cracked from Side to Side, is a quote from The Lady of Shalott by Tennyson. And all my current reads, or almost all my current reads, there's some mention of Tennyson being an influence. So it's just, I really feel like I need to read more Tennyson. But anyway, this was a really good story. It's of course so well written. I really appreciated. There's a lot of social commentary in it because in this one, Miss Marple is feeling her age. Her arthritis has got her, and she can't garden anymore. And her nephew Anthony West has gotten her a caretaker, Miss Knight, who's all condescending and doesn't understand Miss Marple at all, and it's kind of depressing Miss Marple. But it also talks about there's a new development in St. Mary Mead, and it's all about how new developments are and how they change the life of a village, of a traditional village, and the kind of people who are attracted to living in developments. And just, it was really interesting. And then, of course, it also has kind of commentary on Hollywood. And the thing is, the book is almost like a sequel to The Body in the Library, because Mrs. Bantry, her husband has died. What was he, Captain or Colonel Bantry? He's passed away. She sold Gossington Hall, and these Hollywood types bought it. And so they've kind of come into the area, and that's where the mystery lies. And so it harkens back to The Body in the Library, which I thought was a really fun thing. Just all sorts of social commentary going on in this book. I will say that towards the end, she does a couple of things that I just thought, were beyond the pale. Like I didn't see why they needed to be in there, and they were just a little bit too unrealistic. So the ending kind of fell a little bit flat for me. I thought it was a little bit overdone, but it was still a fun read. I really, really enjoyed this book. When Agatha Christie writes well, because sometimes I'll read a book where I'll be ho-hum, but most of the time she's just cracking. I mean, I just think she's just, the dialogues, snaps, and the people seem real right away, and just the way she describes things and presents things, it's just, she's good. I mean, there's a reason why she's so popular. So anyway, so I did read that. So those are the 3 books that I read: 2 Agatha Christie's and Alaska by James Michener. And then my current reads are, I started to read The Big Six by Arthur Ransom. So I'm trying to work my way through all 12 of the Swallows and Amazon series. And this, I think, is number 9. And it was first published in 1940. And we're back in the Norfolk Broads. So we're not at, I can't remember the name of the region that I wanted to, where the other ones are set. This one is in the same area where another book, The Coot Club, and this also refers to the Coot Club. So we're reintroduced to the characters that were in that book, it's all these kids who are really into boating and living on the river there decide that they want to protect birds. And so they're bird watchers. So anyway, so I just started this last night and I'm only on page 25. But I'm looking forward to that. I try to read at least one of these every summer to get through the series eventually in my own lifetime. So I'm looking forward to reading that and enjoying that. And then, this is a really fun thing I'm reading. This is A Time for Gifts by Patrick Lee Fermor. And this was published in the 70s. And it's a memoir of this guy. I think he was a reporter. This British guy who, in 1933, when he was 18, he decided to walk across Europe. And he started in the Netherlands, I think Rotterdam specifically, and he starts to walk. Now, he only gets halfway through. So the next book is Between the Woods. And then I think there's another book that maybe is his life afterwards. I don't know. But anyway, he is such an incredible writer. He writes the most shimmering prose. And this is so full of references to art and literature and Shakespeare and the classics and architecture. He really knows architecture. And it's almost like a course in art history because he's going through these towns and he's looking at the way that these medieval towns are set up and the cathedrals and the castles. And he's such a good descriptionist, unlike Michener. He really... and he has such an erudite vocabulary that I find myself looking a lot of words up. It's just a tremendous memoir of this walk, this incredible walk just on the cusp of World War II. And he's walking through Germany, he's witnessing the rise of Nazism and how it's affecting the people. And it's just brilliant. I'm reading this with my sister Lisa. So I wanted to read it in August, but I think it's going to go into September. I think these books are all going to go into September. Like this is probably going to go into September. I'm not going to have a neat cutoff between August and September for my books. Anyway, really, really enjoying this. And hopefully on Sunday afternoon, we're going to meet for coffee and talk about this. She lives an hour away. So I'll drive a half an hour and she'll drive a half an hour and we will meet to discuss this. So it's been really fun doing a buddy read with her. Really special. So the other continuing read is Truman. And I'm also really enjoying this. Going back to Tennyson. So this was a quote, this title's a quote from The Lady of Shalott. He recites Tennyson as he's walking. So he makes references to Tennyson. And then Truman loved Tennyson as well. So I get references to Tennyson in this book as well. So I really need to read some Tennyson. And there's one more book that I'm currently reading that refers to Tennyson. So anyway, this is so interesting. This Truman by David McCullough. Oh my goodness, this is absolutely fascinating. I'm at the point in the book where they just decided to make him the nominee for vice president. And all the political maneuverings that were going on at the Democratic National Convention. But it's so interesting. You know, I didn't know very much about him, like just bare bones stuff about him. But I didn't know he fought in World War I. I didn't know how he got into government, how he became a senator or anything like that. And how he made his name leading what came to be known the Truman Committee, which was the committee that was going after the war profiteering when the Lend-Lease Act happened and we were helping Europe, supplying them with ammunition and munitions and all that stuff. And he noticed a lot of corruption, a lot of inflation in these contracts. And so he started investigating and he really made a name there. And he became quite popular. They put him on the cover of Time and stuff like that. And that's how he sort of came, because Roosevelt and he had no rapport. They had no relationship, just very, very little contact. And when he was nominated for vice president, he hadn't even talked to Roosevelt for a year. But anyway, it's at an exciting point. So well written, really fascinating stuff. I'm really enjoying it. I'm hoping to really focus on this one and get it done the first half of September. I would like to do that. Then the other books, I'm reading so many books at one time. For the Theology Book Club, I'm slowly working through this Eberhard Arnold Selected Writings. I feel like this is just like a collection, like sort of a scattershot collection of his essays or his speeches. And I really feel like I should have read a biography of him first so I could understand the context better. And somebody in our group at the Theology Book Club did do that, and she just has a better understanding. So maybe I should have done that, because I'm getting a little, I don't know. It's not impressing me, I think, in the way I think I need that context to really appreciate him. But I do love radical Christians, and that's what he was. He was just a radical Christians who want to radically imitate Christ. I think that's where we're all supposed to be. I always feel very, very inadequate in that way. And so he is very inspirational, but I don't quite get the logistics of how he does things, and honestly, I don't agree with everything that he says, but still very inspiring, very interesting. So I'm going to be reading this through September as well. And then another thing that I've been trying to participate in is the T.S. Eliot in August. And I forget the name of the person who started it, who sponsored. I'll put it in the description box. But the person I'm following on it is Roy Reads Anything, which is an excellent channel I highly recommend. And he just did a really good video on his take on The Wasteland by T.S. Eliot. So for the T.S. Eliot in August, you read The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock, which I've read many times, and so that was an easy read. And then The Wasteland was the next poem, and I started to read it on my own, and then I decided I was gonna listen to it. So I got a recording of T.S. Eliot reading it. And I was just kind of, I don't know, I wasn't that taken with it. But then I noticed that Alec Guinness, one of my favorite actors, had done a reading of it, and his was excellent. And getting it that third time, or that second time maybe, yeah, second time, I felt like I understood it, although I don't know if I could articulate very much. I might do a video when the whole thing's over. I might do a video on my experience with T.S. Eliot. But the next thing to read is the 4 quartets, and I'm looking forward to that. But I don't have a copy. It's not in this book. This was a book of my Aunt Jackie's, and she even wrote notes and stuff in here. So I need to get the 4 quartets. I have to get that still. So I might have to run to a bookstore or just order from Amazon or something. Because I wonder, or I guess I could go to the library, see if they have it. But I want to read that because I think I have a book called The Dove Descending by Thomas Howard. And that is his analysis of the 4 quartets. And I've never read the 4 quartets, and I don't know why I have a book about the 4 quartets when I've never read. But anyway, so I want to read the 4 quartets. I'm going to listen to Alec Guinness's reading of it. And then maybe I can get to that other book, Dove Descending. So anyway, so that is another thing I'm participating in. And then the last thing, and oh my gosh, this is long. So sorry. But, you know, I have a lot to talk about, I guess. Let me get to my library on my Kindle, because I am reading a really fascinating book. Again, Tennyson figures in it. Let me go to the cover. But I'm reading a really fascinating book about Tolkien. This was a book I wanted to read because I heard about it from, I don't need the font to be that, so many pages. There we go. Tolkien and the Great War. So this was recommended by, I think her name is Kylie at Luminous Libro, which is a very popular channel that I've just discovered recently, but I just love it. And she recommended this when she was doing the journey with the Inklings in June. And it just really appealed to me because when I was, this year, for the first time in my life, I listened or read the whole trilogy of the Lord of the Rings. And the thing that struck me was the relationship between the Fellowship of the Ring, especially Sam and Frodo, as just that band, that was a band of brothers, that bonding that takes place when you're in deathly peril and you have a task to do. It's just how soldiers would relate to each other who have to go and fight, and they're witnessing hell, they're experiencing hell, and they can only lean on each other, and they know that death could happen at any time. And that's a very strong bond. And that's what appealed to me or really stood out to me in the book, one of the things. And so I was thinking about Tolkien because I knew he had fought in World War I. And so this book really appealed to me, and it's fascinating. I'm only about like 26% in. But it's really interesting. It goes into his whole education, how he was developing his own language, which is, I don't know how to pronounce it. It's Quenya. I want to say Kenya, but that's a country. So Quenya, I don't know how to pronounce it. But he developed this whole language. He was really into philology, and he studied Finnish and Anglo-Saxon, and he was really into making up his own language and just linguistics. And so it's really, really interesting. And then he was a poet. He was writing poetry, just absolutely gorgeous poetry. So anyway, so this is Tolkien and the Great War, The Threshold of Middle-earth, John Garth. Absolutely fascinating. And believe it or not, Tolkien was influenced by Tennyson. So The Idylls of the King, I think, was the... Anyway, so those are my current reads, and that's what I was reading on my trip, and then just after I got back from my trip. We've been super busy since we got back. Unfortunately, the day before we came home, I got sick. So we had to do a red eye, and I was sick. So it took me about 4 days to recover. And then we had to hop to all this home improvement stuff because my 2 adult sons, 25 and 30, moved out, and they're sharing a townhouse. And we had to clean out their rooms, which takes a long time. It's really hard when kids move out. They leave so much stuff behind. It's really hard for them. They're very, forward looking. They don't want to deal with their childhood bedroom. But we had to clean all that out, and which has turned into a great decluttering project for the whole upstairs and even the downstairs. And my husband got a bunch of stuff out of the storage room that was cluttering it up. And then we've had painters in, and we had carpet cleaners in, and we're just trying to do it before the 24th, because on the 25th, very early in the morning, my daughter is scheduled for a C-section. So the grandkids, the 6-year-old and the 3-year-old boys, are going to come stay a couple of nights at Grandma and Granddad's house. And so we're trying to get the room all set up for them. So, which has been quite fun, picking out the paint color and thinking about how we're going to design this. We're going to make it a grandkid sleepover and playroom, one room, and then the other room is going to be like a bona fide guest room, because we haven't had that for a long time. We've always just used the sleeper sofa in the study, but now we're going to have an actual guest room. So anyway, so I have talked for almost half an hour. That's crazy. I'm so sorry, but it's so nice to be back on BookTube, and I hope you are doing well, and I will talk to you later. Happy reading.